To the first joint Judiciary Committee meeting. This is our interim meeting. This process can look different from committee to committee. The co-chairman and I have really talked about this, and what we think the best way to proceed is we've got this packet of topics. We will take public testimony on hopefully everything in the packet, or as much of it as we can get to, and as much of it as people are present for. And then after today, so today's just gonna be about taking testimony. After today, what we're gonna have you do is email Brian Fuller your top 3 that you take from today. And put them in the order that you would rank them. And then we'll have him sort through those and rank them for us. And then the co-chairman and I will get together and with that list and maybe anything else that rises to the top, and we will come up with something before we go to management council. So that's what it's looking like, folks. With that, Mr. Co-chairman, let's get started. We'll start with any state agencies. Do we have any state agencies that have topics in front of us? Jeremiah? No, okay. No state agencies, wow, okay. Yes, oh, okay, come on up. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, Colonel Tim Cameron, I'm the Administrator of Wyoming Highway Patrol. We have submitted to the committees 4 recommended statutory amendment requests. One is to establish primary seatbelt offense, 2 to refine child safety seats, our statute, and 3 to refine the distracted driving statute.
And Mr. Cameron, you don't happen to have the packet that we have, so do you know what page you're on?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't grab one. Thank you.
Because I'm not familiar with your topic on seatbelt laws.
It was under,
I think, Mr. Chair, it's listed
Oh.
under statutory safety updates.
We found it, page 14, it's YDOT statutory safety updates.
Yes, sir.
Highway Patrol, okay, we got you, sir, go ahead.
So under the statutory safety updates, 3 primary sections: primary seatbelt, to establish not wearing a seatbelt as a primary offense instead of what I would term a secondary offense. If a trooper or a peace officer sees someone not restrained by a safety belt, they can make that stop on that alone. Child safety seats would be to establish, change some language, but to establish a rear-facing seat, which we know NHTSA and pediatricians across America recommend a rear-facing seat up to about 3 and less height and weight, and that's all language of the bill. And then distracted driving, where we limit drivers' ability to ensure that their full time and attention is on driving, not manipulating a technical device. One of the recommended topics or requests not associated with statutory safety is the request to refine the Wyoming state retirement system for Wyoming Highway Patrol, Game and Fish, and the DCI. That system for the larger police system was changed after Sergeant Krinke's death, where we changed the spousal benefit or survivor benefit up to 90%. It was not changed for the patrol, DCI, and Game and Fish. They concur with this request, and I've communicated with Mr. Swindell about the impact to the retirement system. In his words, there would be no impact. He would have to explain that, but he said that there would be no impact to that. That is essentially the topic requests we've made.
Committee, any questions for Mr. Cameron on either of those topics? Mr. Co-Chairman?
None, just thank you, Colonel, for bringing these to our attention, and I think they're all valid.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you all very much.
Sorry, yes, Senator
Mr.
Hicks?
Chairman, could I ask a process question? So when we go through these, 'cause
Yes.
some of these, and I'll just use a latest example of retirement. That usually is a function of the Appropriations Committee, state retirement. And I just, if we note those and make a recommendation to Management Council that that would be the appropriate venue. It's historically, appropriations has always dealt with the retirement system as the committee of oversight on that program. So just, I don't know how you want to handle that, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Hicks, I think just like that, if there's something else that we come across that you think deserves attention from a different committee, just let us know and we'll make that note. I appreciate that, and I've so noted. All right, thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
well, on that topic, do you know if that was by chance jointly submitted to Appropriations and Judiciary?
Mr. Chairman, it was not.
Okay, all right, we'll just have to talk with our counterparts then.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Come on up.
Reminder to be brief. We got a lot of people.
Mr. Chairman, Lynn Budd, I'm the Director of the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security, and I was hesitant to come up because Era Now with the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union has done all of the work on this, so, but we just stand in support of it. We're looking at page 10, the disaster program in Wyoming. As we've gone through the fire conditions and things that we had in the last summer, it seems to be a appropriate time for us to have a conversation about a state disaster fund. We are one of, I think, only 9 states that do not have a state disaster fund. Many of them look very similar to a FEMA process, but it's run with state money. And it can look like whatever we want it to look like. But our threshold to meet a FEMA disaster is higher than we can normally get to. And that's for the public assistance, which is public infrastructure. It's $1,033,000, something like that. It changes every year, and it's based on a per capita rating. There's 2 types of assistance from FEMA: individual assistance, which goes directly to people who have lost homes, and things like that. So you think North Carolina, the situation there. And that is also a very hard threshold for us to make. We actually had a situation in the Rock Springs area with some flooding that it was devastating to the people there, but it didn't come anywhere near the ability to meet a FEMA declaration. Again, so what we would like to be able to do with ERA's help and everything is to have a conversation about what can we do as a state to also look at developing a disaster program at the state level. And again, that would give us the ability to make it whatever we want it to be able to assist our citizens when they've had their worst day. I would also mention that there is a council that is being put together by the new administration that will evaluate FEMA. It's a 20-person council. They have apparently been named but not revealed. They have 180 days to evaluate FEMA. And in another hat that I wear, I'm the president of the National Emergency Management Association, and we will be having input on the conversation with FEMA. But the general messaging right now is the fact that they want the states to take on more responsibility for disasters. In addition, we are looking at we would like to see reducing our dependence on federal funding. For instance, we're over 91% federally funded right now through FEMA and DHS grants. So the state is in a problem right now because all of those grants are shut off to us. We can't do our drawdowns. So we'll be having to pay employees and doing all the things that we need to do to continue to run the agency without those federal funds, at least for a time. So I think the more we can become independent and resilient, as we all are, the better off we'll be. Do you have any comments, Sarah?
Director Budd, this one does seem to speak to me that it might be appropriate in appropriations. You didn't jointly submit this topic by chance, did you?
No, we did not, but we can certainly do that if you'd like us to, or,
Now,
They're meeting right now.
yeah, they're meeting right now. Now it's
Okay.
too late now, but we can always talk to them about
okay,
topics, so.
thank you.
Senator Cole?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a process question.
Okay.
We go through the different topics here that are in front of us. This is going to be our only chance to talk about it individually as they come up. Is that the case?
Yes.
Okay, well then I would
To
like,
ask, yeah, to either ask questions or, make comments, that would be appropriate, yes.
well, I missed my opportunity about primary offense being seatbelts, and I'd like to circle back on that when we get a chance.
Sure.
Thank you.
Senator Hicks?
Mr. Chairman, a question for the sponsors on this, and because we've talked about FEMA response for natural disasters, but I'm assuming coming from Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, there's a number of other federal designated natural disasters that comes to mind. It's called drought. And USDA implements a number of natural disaster programs. If you get a declaration of a drought, or even, 2 winters ago, we've got one for some of the severe winters in South. But those type of programs come through USDA, and so I'm assuming that you wanted to include those. So it's not just FEMA, it could be other federal natural disaster relief programs. Is that correct?
Director Bud or Ms. Serrano?
Chairman Olson, Senator Hicks, yes, that's correct. We started thinking about that specifically through this lens, and then in conversations that we had with different agencies, the governor's office realized that this is a bigger piece than just those. And so part of the reason that we came to this committee instead of appropriations is the scope across different agencies, different departments. This being the home committee for the Department of Homeland Security is what led us here, but it is a big issue and a really pressing issue with the review of FEMA. We've already seen a decrease in federal funding. You saw that in the supplemental budget, a request for a position because federal grants or for part of a position to put together a proposal because federal grants that used to cover that are already gone. We expect things to go down further, but there is quite a bit in the Department of Homeland Security, but it is not exclusive to the Department of Homeland Security. When I did speak to the state forester, she noted to keep that the wildfire response and funding is through a separate federal nexus as well. But there's a lot of overlap, and looking at this holistically, this isn't just a fund. This is a bigger picture piece in the face of a very dynamic landscape. And we are going to know more, particularly with FEMA and perhaps others, by the time of your first meeting and certainly your second meeting. And putting this on the topic gives us an opportunity to be proactive and to set something up as best suits our state needs as we see things evolve, particularly at the federal level.
Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Senator Hicks?
So Director Bud, your agency is how is it connected with the Office of State Lands and Investment, and it'll get back to the circular as to where we're going with natural disaster type programs.
Director Bud?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, we don't have a direct relationship working together with regard to disasters or any type of funding that way. We do pay attention to the projects that are going on and try to talk about how we can be complementary with our mitigation program funding, which allows for the reduction of disaster consequences ahead of the game, if you will.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Hicks?
but so on those, Director Bud, at least when we get back to that reference to state forestry, depending on the level of fire, and if you have a number of buildings and stuff, it becomes a FEMA type of thing, and that's coordinated back through state forestry, Office of State Lands. No, or not? You guys handle everything once it's a FEMA designated fire.
Director Bud?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, yeah, our relationship with forestry is a little tough to understand because we both work with FEMA. They work with FEMA on the FMAG, or the Fire Management Assistance Grant, which helps pay for the response. If they get an FMAG for a fire, then we get mitigation money to be distributed to those communities to create programs that will reduce the consequences from that fire. In addition, we support each other and work together there. So is that help? And then all of the other disaster funding, and we did actually get a FEMA disaster in Johnson and Campbell counties, I believe. The only reason we got it is because there was a lot of damage to power lines. and that's public infrastructure. And that can only go to co-ops type organizations. If it's a for-profit company, it cannot go to them.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to find a home for this topic.
I can tell, yes. So we really do have to move forward. We have 18 pages of topics. We appreciate your testimony. And just a shout to everyone out there, please be succinct as possible. We want to get through at least we just need a general introduction of all of your topics at this point. And then if you have more information that you feel like we're only scratching the surface, you can email us that additional information as well. Thank you, Director Bud. Any other state agencies? Any state agencies? All right, then I will move to our senators and representatives. Senator Hutchings, come on up. Representative Ottman, Representative Heiner, you'll be next. Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, co-chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you what was House Bill 189, harmful communications to minors.
And Senator Hutchings, it'd be helpful if you could tell us what page you're on.
I'm on the front page of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Oh, in the bill, I don't have the
No.
package.
Oh, you don't know
I
where
do
you're at in
not
the
have-
packet?
Maybe,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
page 16.
Representative Lee? What
Oh,
was
thank
that?
you.
Page 16.
16?
thank you so much. Thank you, Pierre.
All right, Senator Hutchings, we're there. Go ahead.
All right. We all know you can look online and see it is replete with stories about young children getting snatched up by predators. They have been talking to these people online and on their cell phones. And what's sad now, I have 2 identical twin grandsons. My husband and I wanted to buy them walkie-talkies for a present. And in the Amazon ratings, someone said, don't buy them for your kids because the predators are now jumping into the talk on walkie-talkies. Kids can't even have fun anymore. So this bill talks about the harmful communications to minors. We want to give our law enforcement statutes that they can go to where everything is succinct. They can get there and know exactly what they need to do to arrest these people that, these predators that are doing this. Just this last night, I watched North Carolina news, and a young girl was snatched from her home, kidnapped, by 2 traffickers. The FBI were able to find her and return her to their home. And the FBI agent mentioned that the parents need to pay attention to what their kids are doing on their phones and cell phones. This is, I think, one of the most important topics of our time. I hope you take it up. We have a bill that I look at as a foundation. I'm willing to help, and I'm sure the sponsor is willing to help you guys in any way. And we also heard somebody else is willing to help us in any way to get this into our statutes. Without, Mr. Chairman, brief overview. If you have any questions, I'm here for you.
Senator Hutchins, I think that's perfect because everyone's at least seen House Bill 189 this session, so it should be pretty fresh on everyone's mind.
Thank you so much, members.
Thank you. Representative Ottman, you made it.
I did. We'll see if I have to run somewhere during.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. First off, there is the FOIA request. It's on page 5. And basically, I put this in as a topic because it seems to be something that is really running rampant through the county offices and different places. People are getting involved and they're wanting FOIA requests. And so sometimes those requests are simple to do. They could just go to an IT person. Other times it could take loads and loads and loads and loads of emails and lots of time. So what I'm hoping is maybe to have some time, whether this is an issue by itself or combined, to just say, who receives these? Sometimes it's IT, sometimes it's a clerk, sometimes it's it needs to be a new employee. whatever that might be, and also the rates, because media also uses these requests for their articles and background information these days, as their supplies are limited with reporters and things like that. So that's why I put it out there. I think if we could just get all players to the table and to say, okay, how would this work better for everybody? And what kind of prices are we looking at? Because some of these documents are up $400, $600, and so it gets quite lengthy. But also, should there be a limit on how many you can request? All of those are issues that people have rights to do, but what is reasonable. So I just wanted to bring that. If your committee would consider that, that would be great. The second one
Let's
is,
see if there's any questions on that, Representative Ottman.
I'm sorry,
Any
I'm trying to
questions?
hurry.
Senator Kolb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman. What, I guess, evidence do we have that people have not been able to get public records requests? I think they're getting conflated with FOIA requests, public records requests for counties. It's set by the county clerks. Do we have any sort of data that says that people, I don't know, that something wasn't handled correctly and they didn't get the request? Because it's a nuanced issue, right? You have some folks that basically, if they published it, there's your public records. And we're not going to pay for the county clerks to go through that and fish through things because you or somebody didn't bother to look at the published documents. You know, that comes up, I've heard. But just factually, I guess, why is the need for this? I mean, besides people think that, I guess, they can't get public records request, any more information on that topic?
Well,
Representative Ottman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator Kolb, that is the whole point that I was bringing it. There's so many different players. There's individuals, there's newspapers, there's clerks, there's IT people, there are organizations. People are entitled to get FOIA requests, but sometimes there's thousands. Can a local county government provide that information? Can they do it in a timely manner? And what kind of charges are they going to do? It's a new thing with computers. This wasn't as readily available before we had online requests and before we had all of the information. This can go back to, people can request emails from people. And to go back through that data and have someone go back through all of that is not a search and print. So it is an issue with the clerks. It is an issue with the counties. They need to provide this service, but how are they going to do that efficiently and costly? And how do we protect the people from getting the information that they want while not being abrasive? So I believe that there's enough questions there that it needs to be looked into. And so that's why I brought it.
Thank you. You have a couple of topics for us. What's the next
I
one?
do. The second one was on judges, and I didn't have it on my sheet. It is on your sheet, page 5. And what this was, during election season, sometimes it's so very difficult to know who judges are, which, we get a list of who's up for election, but who are they? And so I was told, I tried to look into it, not in a nefarious way, but just to say, who are these people and what is it that they do? I was told that the best way to find out, because they are nonpartisan and they have to be very careful about the information that they put out, the best place for me to go would be to investigate the court cases that they presided over and what their decisions were. Well, okay, but that is not something easily done by a novice. And so I was just hoping that there is a way. I was told today that on the Law Association website that there is where attorneys can vote up or down on anonymously on a judge. But if there could be, because these people are very important to our society, to our court system, and to make sure we vote for the good ones and can support them, I just thought was would be something, because this is an issue that's been here forever. It's difficult to crack that nut without making a mess. And so I just thought your committee would be the perfect place to
Oh,
address
thank you for that.
Yeah,
We'll have some meet and greets with the judges, some receptions.
there we go. That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yep.
Okay, that would
Just
be
go on
nice.
a tour
Yeah.
around the state.
So we could, whatever your committee sees fit. I just wanted to bring these because these are issues that people have brought to me and I've had myself over the years. So, so your consideration is appreciated. The last one is a bill that I brought this year, House Bill 223, and it is, let me see here. Preventing strategic lawsuits against public participation. A few people said, I don't know what that is, it's 18 pages, it's crazy, I don't understand it. So with permission, I would just like to give a quick overview of what it is, not the details of the bill particularly, but just to say, okay, this is why I'm asking that it's considered. If I could
And
have your
representatives and
permission.
senators, this one is not in your packet. Representative Ottman talked to me about this, and this bill came before our committee after the deadline for interim topics, so we didn't have that opportunity to get it submitted, but I did tell her she could at least give the topic to us at this meeting, so. Go ahead, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I appreciate your patience with this. First off, the bill, it says, this was what the bill does. And for those of you that are familiar with this type of situation, it curbs, House Bill 223 curbs judicial abuse in defamation and First Amendment cases by ensuring meritless claims are dismissed early while preserving valid claims. And that's why I'm here to explain it a little bit, because that's not clear unless you've either been a person in a suit or presided over one. So just a few points. SLAP suits, and that is the acronym for Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation, SLAPP. They are a growing threat to Wyoming citizens. They silence ranchers, parents, small business owners who speak out on public issues. We can't afford to wait while these voices are stifled. An interim study ensures that we will act thoughtfully but decisively to protect free speech. House Bill 223 did not pass this year, with some saying it needs more study. I agree. Let's use the interim to refine it. This bill offers qualified immunity, swift dismissals, and remedies like attorney's fees and damages. It's a robust framework, but we can perfect it together to fit Wyoming needs. Our state's rural character and tight-knit communities make SLAP suits especially damaging. A wealthy outsider or corporation can bury a local critic with thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal costs. We need to study how anti-SLAP protections can shield our people without disrupting legitimate claims. HB 223 was our blueprint, and so I'm hoping that that can be the nexus for just a wonderful independent bill for Wyoming. Over 30 states have anti-SLAP laws, but Wyoming can do better. An interim study lets us compare these models, like California's broad protections or Texas free awards, and craft a law that leads the nation. Interstate provisions like damages for out-of-state suits show we're ready to innovate. SLAP suits clog our courts. They waste time and taxpayer money, and the cases are meant to harass, not resolve disputes. There's a 30-day dismissal rule, and discovery stays tackle this head on. Studying this during the interim can prove how it saves resources while protecting our First Amendment rights of speech, petition, and gatherings. It makes it a magnet for entrepreneurs. I'm almost finished. Its qualified immunity and fast-track dismissals protect startups and small businesses from costly SLAPP suits filed by competitors or critics. An interim study can confirm how this reduces legal risks, making Wyoming a safer bet for business formation than states without these particular safeguards. Businesses thrive where innovation isn't punished. The awards of attorney fees and damages included in House Bill 223, like up to $100,000 for out-of-state SLAPP victories, shield companies from litigation meant to crush bold new ideas. Studying this will show how Wyoming can draw cutting-edge firms by promising litigation landscape that favors growth over gridlock. Okay, it isn't about rushing, it's about collaboration, and our state prides itself on independence and free thought. SLAPP suits undermine that. By studying anti-SLAPP and HB 223 now, we position Wyoming to lead in defending liberty, not just follow. Let's bring this back next year stronger and unstoppable. I thank you for your time and letting me present this.
Thank you, Representative Ottman. I don't think we have any questions, but we
Okay.
appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Heiner? Welcome to Joint Judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Scott Heiner, House District 18. Thank you, committee. So I'm referencing page 2 and 3 of your packet. The first proposal is transparency and accountability in Wyoming's judicial selection process. So Wyoming has operated under the Missouri plan for the past 50 years. Many states are revisiting the way they nominate and select judges for our Supreme Court, for their Supreme Court. And it may be an opportunity for us to look as well at the way that we nominate and select judges. So right now, the nominating commission selects 3 nominees, and from those 3 nominees, the governor chooses a judge. You look at what the federal level does, for a Supreme Court justice, it goes through confirmation hearings. So maybe we need to look at that, put the legislative oversight in there, kind of a review of that selection before it's finalized, so that the Senate may be able to have some confirmation hearings on that. Alaska and some of the other states have tried to increase transparency by publishing those nominees or those that are being looked at for the selection process, at their qualifications, and so that it's more transparent and open. So that's what this is all about, is just looking at what we're doing today, Mr. Chairman, and seeing if this, after 50 years, we need to change or modify that as some other states have done.
All right, what's next?
Okay, the second one is on page 3, oversight and reform of the Wyoming State Bar. And I want to tell you, I am not a member of the bar, never have been, and I'm about 8 years away from education to be able to be a member of the bar. So, but the Wyoming State Bar, it regulates the authority. It's a mandatory bar association, as you attorneys well know. It's mandatory that all attorneys in the state be members. It's responsible for licensing, discipline, and regulation of attorneys. Effectively allows the legal profession to self-regulate with very limited external oversight. There's been some concerns whether this structure provides sufficient accountability and transparency, as well as whether reform should be considered to increase public and legislative oversight. One of the things that we may want to look at is the ideological initiatives within the bar, such as DEI. That is one of the, it is a section of the Bar Association, and whether a mandatory professional organization should engage in activities beyond its core regulatory functions, such as DEI. So just to take a look at the Wyoming State Bar, see if it should be required, mandatory, or voluntary, and whether it should be involved in some of these political action and functions other than just regulating the attorneys.
Okay, any questions, committee? No? You got a third one for us?
And the third one is also on page 3. It's a good familiar one. It increases transparency and accountability of the Wyoming Attorney General. This is the people's attorney, but the Attorney General is not elected by the people. Many times we look at some of these lawsuits that are being filed on behalf of the state of Wyoming. And in the federal perspective, Wyoming is not included in some of those. Who decides which lawsuits the state of Wyoming will get involved in? If this position really is representing the people, maybe the people need to have more of a voice in who is our actual Attorney General. So that has been brought to the legislative body a couple of times. It hasn't reached the finish line. This last this session, it got through committee on the House side. I killed it in my hopper. There was just not enough time to hear all of the bills, and I didn't want to be accused of preferential treatment for my own bill, so I held it down because there wasn't going to be enough time. So I would humbly ask the body to look at that as something that the committee wants to take up. That would be great.
If you brought us every bill you killed in your hopper, we'd be really busy.
You would. So I just selected the ones that were very personal.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Any questions, committee? All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Representative.
Thank you, committee.
Senator Landon. Senator Pearson, were you gonna, do you have any topics before us? Okay, get ready, I'll call you up. Go ahead, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. Thank you. Bill Landon, Senate District 27 in Natrona County. You will see my name referenced in a topic at the bottom of page 1. And that comes to you from my willingness to have my name on this topic because of my chairmanship of this committee the last 2 years. This has been something that has come to our attention several times over the last 4 or 5 years, and that is the sex offender statutes. It's a very difficult set of statutes for a committee to look at, but I would encourage the committee to consider this, especially in light of a bill that looks like it's going to go through. The Representative Knapp bill, I think, is on second or third reading today. The sex offender bill, which would place the first and second degree offenders under the blanket of having to report for the rest of their lives on the sex offender registry. That will stand or fall on its own merit, but I just think that this set of statutes, it would be a committee topic that I think is worthy of your consideration to make sure that the penalty fits the crime, particularly in the offense of second degree, to have to report the rest of your life. The sex offender list is more of a safety to the community than it is a punishment, but at any rate, that's a quick overview of the topic. Don't want to take much more of your time, Mr. Chairman, but that's why it comes to you.
Mr. Co-Chairman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Senator, is your request that we do a deep dive into the entirety of the sex offender registration statutes, or that we specifically look at 62316?
Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, I think either. I think a quick dive, you could probably pick up a couple of items in that reference statute that might be something you could correct in in one meeting. If you wanted to take up all of these, that's a bigger lift, and it also would just demand a little more time. So,
Any other questions for Senator Landon?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if I
sir.
might, can I just touch on one other topic?
Sure.
Illicit vaping.
Yeah,
issue, I
what, do you
think
know what
is,
page that's on? It's towards the back, I think.
it is. I'm sorry, I didn't have
Page
it
16.
open to that.
We got it.
That was actually a bill that I brought last year, committee. Was unable to do so this year because I had brought too many bills. And honestly, I think this is a very, very important topic, something that we need to get out ahead of. We've got some things going on out across that are very concerning. I'm not sure that my family didn't get hit with it last year when we lost my brother. We believe that he maybe ran into this illicit vaping problem. Anyway, I think it's an important topic, and I hope you'll consider that one. I know that you'll hear about that one a little bit later. But Mr. Chairman, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Senator Landon, do you remember the bill number on
194.
194? Is it in there? Okay, it's in there.
Okay,
Never mind. We got it.
thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yes, Pierre. We'll circle back. Right now, we're just going through we're going in order of going through the representatives and senators, then we'll go to general public comment. Okay, Representative Campbell? And then Senator Pearson, you'll be next. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Appreciate you taking consideration of. So the top of page 4, with the family treatment pilot. This actually has been in conversation for some time in Casper and comes from our 7th Judicial District, our DA School District, Youth Crisis Center, and our law enforcement in Casper. And I imagine it is a challenge across the state, but what we are proposing as an interim topic is that we look at establishing a pilot program that would start in Casper and what that would look like. And then, determine what those metrics are to measure success. And then hopefully eventually this is something that could be replicated throughout the state. So very similar to, I think, the substance abuse pilot programs that started in Gillette and are or will be starting in Casper as well. With the family court, the challenge we run into, especially with some of our kiddos, is we may have kiddos that are either directed by the court, school district, or end up at the Youth Crisis Center, and then start going through some programs and services to help them in terms of addiction, in terms of mental behavioral health. And so work through these programs, and then what happens upon graduation and completion of the programs is we send them right back to the home environment that often is the origination of a lot of these challenges. So they're going back into a very toxic environment, and there really isn't a way to engage the family and hold, have some accountability, I guess, with the parents and involving them. So we have a more holistic approach and increase our success rate. So I know there are other states that have, the family court. Wyoming does not, but we have all the folks on board out of Casper and Natrona County saying, yes, we would like to do this. This is important, and we would like to, be the pilot for this. So that would be our ask and consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. And if I can't, I will tell you.
Would this court handle general matters of family law and domestic relations, so divorces, custody, or you think, because it would not handle those?
No, I think those are already in existence, right? And have, where the process that those go through, it would more be specific to family treatment as it relates to the youth. And the challenges that we get. They're either referred through, because of mental behavioral health issues or substance abuse issues. It's those kiddos that either end up spending time at the Youth Crisis Center, are, directed to do so through the courts or through our school districts. They get a lot of those kiddos. So it would be specific to how do we help these kids and have some family accountability and family participation in those programs.
Okay. Thank you. That's it. We don't have any questions. Thank you. Senator Pearson. Sure.
No. You didn't.
Oh, well, I guess my co-chairman's keeping me honest. I didn't let somebody else testify yet, so we'll get to general. When we get to general public comment, we'll call you back up, Sean. Go ahead, Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, chairmans, members of the committee. I am speaking on the topic of shared parenting. So this session, I brought a shared parenting bill that was requested by some constituents of mine. Obviously, the shared parenting bill wasn't right. And so I was gonna get something in the hopper for shared parenting in 2 years until I just realized today that you guys were possibly gonna discuss this. And I would like to thank Chairman Olson for sponsoring this topic because it is very important in our state. 97% of the constituents that were polled on this.
And Senator Pearson, hold on just a second. We're on page 17.
Oh, sorry.
It's the bottom of page 17, but the topic really appears on the last page 18. Go ahead, Senator
Yeah,
Pearson.
so 97% of Wyoming voters that were polled on this topic agree that there needs to be some sort of legislation concerning shared parenting. And I want to get it right. And we need to protect our parents out there that both feel like they need access to their children. And shared parenting, decision-making, all of that. And so I want to thank this committee. Obviously, Sean Murphy is here to speak on this topic, but this is very important. And thank you, committee, for hearing my testimony.
Representative Chestik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. Do the courts already have the power to issue when they're doing custody awards? Do they already have the power inherently to do shared custody? And if they do, why is that not adequate?
Senator Pearson.
I believe that they do, but I know that in the state of Wyoming, there are a lot of parents out there that feel like custody is weighted one way, and they feel like that they are not getting access to their children. And in decision-making or as far as being able to see them. And so that's why I brought this bill. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator Pearson.
Thank you.
Yes, Co-Chairman Washut.
Mr. Co-Chairman, just your direction here.
Yep.
Representative Scott Smith has a proposal on page 11 that he asked me to present on his behalf. Do you want me to go now or wait?
Yeah, I was thinking if we have the time when we get there, we'll just run down the dais. But I think if you want to wait for that or you want to present now?
Wait.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's all for our senators and representatives. Then we'll move into general public comment. If you're wishing to comment on a topic, please come forward. Yep. Mr. Detail,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
this is not minerals. This is judiciary.
I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. Travis Detail with the Mining Association, and I think this is my first time before the Judiciary Committee ever. And I would like to speak a little bit about the topic on page 15, mineral interest ownership. And in visiting with Senator Craigo as to the best place for this topic, he kind of recommended the Judiciary Committee because this deals with split estates and split estate law with mineral deeds, warranty deeds, and a lot of legal stuff that this may be the best committee for. But what we're looking at is this was a topic that was brought to me by one of my bentonite operators in Hot Springs County. Dealing with trying to find out who owns a mineral estate once it's been severed from the surface and passed down through multiple generations and diluted. And in the case that he brought me, this is a particular mineral interest that is 5 generations deep. And starting off at the first generation of a husband and wife, going down to the second generation of 5 children, generation 3, 24 kids from 2 children, generation 4, 73 kids from the third generation. And so the estate is just, nobody knows how to establish the ownership. And the challenge for mineral ownership is that the transfer either needs to be completed via a mineral deed, a warranty deed, a quitclaim deed, or through probate with a final decree of distribution. And what we're finding is that in the cases of significant dilution of who owns that, that the royalty that may be paid might be not worth, paying to go through all the legal process to do it. So the solution, a possible solution, the state of North Dakota has a mineral ownership program where mineral owners are required to submit a statement of claim of the mineral industry, mineral interest every 20 years for an unused or dormant mineral interest. And if there is no submittal in the 20 years, then a surface owner may file what they call a statement of intention to succeed the ownership of mineral interest and secure that mineral interest. And of course, the end game on this from our association standpoint and my membership standpoint is we want to find out who owns the mineral so that we can develop it. And that's the quick down and dirty on it, Mr. Chairman, and I would certainly stand for any questions.
Any questions, committee? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Detaille. Mr. Correnti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Washit, Committee, Joey Correnti, Rural Wyoming Matters. We're an educational informational advocacy group throughout rural Wyoming. I'm going to direct your attention to page 17, proposed topic, non-compete clauses for dissolved businesses. This is a topic that rides on the back of a bill that is still currently in the House, Senate File 107, the right to work and do business. So firstly, if that bill does not meet the deadline calendar for this week, I would ask the committee to contemplate the entire bill and bringing it back, because there's no point in talking about this piece without the rest of the bill. It is what they call a good little bill. 3 pages, does a lot to increase access and accountability and enforcement, and protects people that are in businesses and partnerships that may have signed something and now can't do their job. And in rural Wyoming, we lose a lot of doctors all the way down to barbers because you're not going to work for that guy anymore. And you said you weren't going to work in that area within 50 miles for years. What it doesn't contemplate is people that are in associations or partnerships with each other that are pushed out, never signed anything, but are now being told, these are our terms, here's your check. There is a statute that says you can forcibly buy out a partner. And then people put terms to that. And if they say you can't compete with us for however long, I never signed a contract. The current Senate File 107 only contemplates contracts. So I'd ask the consideration of the committee and maybe even House members to go and beat that calendar that we've got this week. So 80% of your interim work will be done on this topic because the main portion of the bill has passed. Move up to page 13, the proposed topic of fentanyl and other cartel influenced crimes. Towards the end, it says to identify additional resources needed by law enforcement, prosecutors, or others. And I think this should be a consideration of this committee for years to come, that we fundamentally change the posture in how we deal with drug interdiction. We did have a bill this year that contemplated money laundering. I don't think it passed, but there are components of that bill that can be used as tools for what some of our greatest crimes, including drug dealing, and it's all illegal commerce. And how did we get Capone? Illegal commerce, money laundering that resulted in tax evasion. And especially with the forecast that and the concerns we're having about revenue, how are we only looking at possibly busting the low-end dealers and users of drugs when they're not really making the revenue that the state should be able to be getting because they're conducting illegal business? I personally don't care if it's people with bootleg DVDs. So I'd like to see that come forward and maybe change the posture as a tool, civil asset forfeiture, money laundering, all the other ways, because these are crimes independent of where the source of the funding comes that identify, hey, you're money laundering, where are you getting this money from? That leads us to the human trafficking, to the drug dealing, and it's all under illegal commerce. And lastly, if we could look at page 5, a topic that was discussed earlier under FOIA requests. I looked everywhere, but I could not find a provision in our Constitution that said a proposed interim topic could not be so amended as to not represent its original purpose. So the direction this may need to go is not trying to fix the system we have. How much does it cost? How much time does it take? But to look into creating fully digital archive, starting with whatever you want, court records, public notices, so that you can have access from home and not have to utilize I make the sausage. But right now I can go to my courthouse and look up court records and save them to a thumb drive sometimes. My court has gotten used to me doing that. Now they're making money saying I have to get them to put it on a disc. I don't have a DVD player anymore. But if we could start accessing the records from home, pre-redacted, whatever, in a limited format, and eventually build all the way out into databases for voter rolls, public records, police records, that, you know, within, it's gonna be a long time. This is a 10, 12-year lift to get all the way there. But I think that this FOIA conversation also needs to contemplate the future of accessing information with the security component still intact. And with that, I will offer my services to the committee throughout the interim and stand for any questions.
Careful what you offer us. Thank you, Mr. Correnti. Mr. Murphy.
Chairman Olson, Chairman Washut, members of the Joint Committee. I am Sean Murphy. I'm here representing a charitable fund called Compassion. We have three main advocacy topics. Two are federal. One of those is palliative, end-of-life care and advancing that. One is looking at what has been going on recently with these missing children, 300,000 that have come into the country. Where are they? Where have they gone? We're pressing those at a federal level, but at a state level, the last 5 years, I've really been working hard on this issue of equal shared parenting. And just a little history for the committee, it's a complicated issue, though it seems simple at a surface level. There's been multiple bills dating back to 2019 trying to find the right legislative approach to create a presumption of shared parenting. And we all agree that courts are doing a good job in Wyoming ending up at the final result of a good shared parenting order when that is what makes the most sense. But what we're trying to do with this legislation, which has been very successful in several other states, is create this presumption so that we limit the conflict and the litigation that parents and divorce attorneys drive in these kinds of situations. So all of this falls under Title 20. And the problem the last couple of years has been, we've never done a deep dive and looked at Title 20 and said, what do we have in there that's really good? And we have some really good stuff in Title 20 around domestic violence, which is great and very protective. But nobody, like the attorneys in the room, have never said, how would we take the good stuff that we have and make the amendments such to the criteria so that we can really have this presumption that not only would, but has in other states limited the litigation and what is really weaponizing children in these cases where parents try to get an unfair advantage. And I know, or I'm quite certain that everyone in this room has either heard of these situations, and it usually goes by words like custody wars, okay, custody disputes. And that isn't to say that the courts aren't doing a good job. It's that these cases are ending up in courts and costing parent time, money, and heartache. And we saw this in the news not too long ago. This can end up really bad when there's custody disputes. It destroys lives. And parents, they do drastic things when faced with that kind of pressure and mental health challenges. So we have a duty and responsibility to help make the situation better. We did a poll. We hired a third-party polling company. This was 2 years ago, ResearchScape International, and there was a huge outpouring of support for shared parenting. It's like people know that this is something we should be doing and it isn't right. So to address Representative Chesnick's question, like, do we have shared parenting? Isn't this what courts are doing? Yes, but it's taking so long and trauma and struggle to get to those orders in courts, which isn't all the cases, but it is some. And this presumption helps create an environment where parents know and divorce lawyers know going into these situations, the presumption is shared parenting. We're not going to make up things. We're not going to start making false allegations. We're not going to create fighting. We're not going to litigate. Okay, we're going to work together. So we've seen great success in Kentucky, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Arizona with these frameworks. So what we did after the bill this year is I reached out to an organization called National Parenting Organization. They were the architects of the Kentucky and the West Virginia shared parenting legislation. And they brought their lawyers to the table and they said, we're going to go through Wyoming's Title 20. So they go all the way through Title 20, they marked it up, they highlighted it, and then they looked at our statutes and what we have, and they said, here's
Hey,
what we
Mr.
think.
Murphy, I only got a couple of minutes. Can you just
To wrap it
bring
all
us
up,
home?
after all that, Mr. Chairman, they put together a really good draft, and I think that if this is taken on as an interim topic, which it should be, we can bring all the stakeholders, the courts, the lobbyist groups around domestic violence, we can bring everyone together and really do this right. We haven't done it right for 6 years, and this is a great chance, and it is complicated. And it's the judiciary is the perfect place for this, with attorneys and looking at the legal structure around it. So I really appreciate your consideration and your support for listing this, Mr. Chairman.
Where's the legislation from that you would use as a starting point? Did you say Kentucky?
I have a draft, but I did not print a copy for
That's okay.
everyone, and I can obviously get it to everybody.
We got it. All right, thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who's next? Dale, you've been sitting there. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and Committee, my name is Dale Steenbergen. I am President CEO of the Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce. I also run the Wyoming Retail Association, which is a group of retailers all across the state, and the Wyoming Chamber of Commerce, which is a cooperative group of more than 20 chambers of commerce and economic development organizations across the state. So today we come to you, and it would be page 4 and page 7. We are very interested in looking and seeing what the state of Wyoming can help us to deal with retail crime in our communities. So when you think about organized retail crime, I'm not talking about the Gotti family moving to Wyoming, right? I'm talking about a number of people that get together, that go into our stores and rob our business people. It is a serious issue. I just looked it up, just Googled it right before I came here. It shows us as 47th in the nation, right? So we are not getting the job done on that. What does that mean for our businesses? It means that they can't make it. I'll never forget a heartbreaking story. It was in House Judiciary, Chairman Washut, a couple of years ago. A lady from Riverton was talking about running a meat market and had somebody come in and push over a counter. Meanwhile, out the back door was running her profit. So we are very concerned about this issue. It is a real issue, an issue of concern, and we do appreciate the committee looking at the issue and turning it into an interim topic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Steenbergen? Yes, Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question to see if this is something that would also be covered under there. In my district, I'm also hearing that there are certain retailers, big grocery store chains that are not prosecuting shoplifting. People have told me whole shopping carts go out the door, and then the retailer, because the parent company has a policy not to prosecute. Would that be something that would also be under this topic, or that the chamber supports?
Yes,
Mr.
we hear
Steenbergen?
we hear this narrative from all over the state of Wyoming, and certainly the big retailers are tracking this, right? So they have a very good hold on it. But there's some question even in our smallest businesses. What can you do to hold your ground with what can your employees do? What should our policy be? And so, I think it's certainly an issue. Mr. Chairman, if I would also like to let you know that this issue, the Liquor Association and the petroleum marketers are also wanting to talk about this issue.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Pickard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Dave Pickard. I'm here representing Altria Client Services. I'd like to talk to you briefly about the illicit nicotine vapor product market and state enforcement. It's on page 16. You heard a little bit of this from Senator Landon. To give you a quick background, this session we had Senate File 194, which was a manufacturer's regulation bill for the manufacturers of the products. Last year we had Senate File 107. Please don't confuse that with Senate File 107 that is still in the process going on right now, but Senate File 107 was a much broader bill. It has been working in some states. It has been brought through litigation in other states. So our goal on Senate File 194 was to eliminate a lot of that controversy and clearly not impose any restrictions on the retailers. We're clearly going after the manufacturers. So I think most of you have a document in front of you. I'd be happy to share more information as this moves forward, but we certainly would ask the committee to take a look at that, and hopefully it will become an interim topic so we can have some good legislation come forward in the budget session. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Committee? All right. Thank you, Mr. Pickard. Ms. Rubino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jessie Rubino. I'm with the State Freedom Caucus Network, and I am here to present a topic that you can find on page 9, enhancing transparency and accountability in licensing boards. So this topic is based on House Bill 120 that was sponsored by Representative Strzok. The bill made it through the House Education Committee. It was amended, and the amendments adopted by the House Education Committee, that's the status of the bill that I think is the best thing to work off of if this committee were to move forward with this topic. So really quickly, just for sake of time, I'll just run through the what, the why, and the how for this topic. If this topic were chosen, it would hopefully guide this committee in evaluating the oversight, transparency, and accountability of Wyoming's professional licensing boards, and specifically the due process rights afforded under the Administrative Procedure Act. Hopefully this topic would result in two specific things. In particular, examining the possibility of creating an exemption or a carve-out to the Administrative Procedure Act's exhaustion requirement for very limited circumstances where a person is subject to a significant monetary fine or the loss of a significant liberty interest, like a professional license, someone's ability to earn a living and support their family. The second thing that this topic might result in is improving public access to meetings of licensing boards. This House Bill 120 and this topic came about particularly out of some concerns, very public concerns here in Cheyenne involving a beloved local pharmacy that rightfully felt as though they were abused by a confusing and I guess just a very confusing and a process lacking due process regarding the license of a pharmacist in particular and the pharmacy's license to operate. There were instances where the individuals subject to the licensing board's disciplinary process felt as though they were subject to a process that was not publicly known to them. And there were also public meetings where members of the public were arrested in this very building for speaking during a recess. And so there's been a lot of concern about just accountability, oversight, public access to licensing boards. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Yes, Representative Chestik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you again. Do you see this topic as related to or distinct from the topic that Majority Floor Leader Heiner brought to us regarding the state bar?
Ms. Rubino.
Mr. Chairman, Professor Representative Chestek, I think that it would be distinct from the topic presented by the bar. And I went back and forth. I was working with Representative Strzok, Representative Lean, Representative Lawley on where this should go. And, you know, some of us thought maybe corporations because it has to do with licensing, people working. But I think the Judiciary Committee is a great place for this to land because if the committee were to explore the path taken by House Bill 120, you could possibly look at an exception to the exhaustion requirement, which for those of you on the committee who don't know what that is, if a person is subject to an administrative agency's disciplinary process, you are required by law to exhaust the administrative remedies before you can appeal your situation to the district court. And by that time, if it's a really serious matter, a lot of people they've exhausted their financial resources as well. And so because if we were to hopefully create limited exceptions to the exhaustion requirement, people would find themselves in court. And so I think that's why this committee would be a good place for that. But I do think it's distinct from the bar oversight because really we're dealing with the State Office of Hearing Examiners. And again, another reason it'd be great for interim is to allow all those stakeholders to come in. We heard during the Education Committee that this would be a big lift. We'd have to make sure it's cabined. The exhaustion requirement it's there for a good reason, but I think it would be good to bring in all the interested parties, all the stakeholders involved in a situation like this, including the public, including the licensees who feel as though they were not treated fairly by the government, and just come to a solution that benefits everyone.
Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, I know a little bit about this subject. It involved another company with the same name, oddly enough, in Evanston. What was the outcome of said proceedings? What happened? Because I hadn't heard yet exactly where we're at today. That would probably drive me to think that there's a reason to go any further with it. So I'd just like to know more about it if it has been concluded yet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Rubino.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cole, that's a good question. So I am a member of the public. I'm not affiliated with that pharmacy at all, but I've been watching it very closely. And I'm not exactly aware of where they are at this specific moment, but the last action of the State Board of Pharmacy was to require the owner of the pharmacy to sell her business to a third party. And she lost her pharmacist license for 3 years, and then the pharmacy itself was forced to forego its operating license as a pharmacy. And I'd like to direct you all to, and I can send an email, there was a letter to the editor a few months back in the Wyoming Tribune-Eagle that was actually drafted by a senior hearing examiner for the state of Wyoming, who raised concerns about the fact that the State Board of Pharmacy likely lacks statutory authority to force a summary suspension of a pharmacy license, not a pharmacist license, but a pharmacy license. So that's where it's at right now. I know that the owner of the pharmacy who's been forced to sell, they're looking for a buyer, and they're just trying to get their feet back on track. But they're open. They're just trying to find a buyer.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Thank you.
And could you send us that email? That would be great. Other public testimony? Other public testimony. Okay, we're going to go online to Mr. Hanson. Pierre? Mr. Hanson, welcome to Joint Judiciary. We've got, just so you're aware, we've got a couple of minutes before we need to move to our next step in today's process, so please be succinct as possible. You got a couple minutes.
Thank you. Hello, Chairman Olson, Chairman Washut, and members of the Judiciary Committee. I want to thank you all and Senator Landon for sponsoring this request. My name is Jason Hanson. I'm here today to speak on behalf of all those affected by the unconstitutional placement of Wyoming Statute 62316A-II, third-degree sexual abuse of a minor, into Wyoming's severe tier offenders, subjecting them to register 4 times a year for life, while 4 or 5 worst first and second degree offenses are only registered 2 times a year for 25 years. This was brought about to the Judiciary Committee over the last couple of years. In last year's interim session, they tried to fix it, but ultimately it didn't work out with the bill in question. The LSL office at that time provided a detailed memo on that statute showing it is indeed being made to register twice as often as many worse first and second degree offenses. The Attorney General's office also admitted at that time that one of the worst first degree offenses is even an upgraded charge given to the same third degree offenders had they chosen younger victims. This very Judiciary Committee just decided to move all those worse first and second degree offenses with younger victims and worse conduct than this third degree offense this year with House Bill 280. Those new lifetime registration and extra visits for all those first and second degree offenders in that bill do not affect anyone convicted between 2007 and 2025, because it would violate the ex post facto laws to place new retroactive lifelong restraints on registrants. That means that all those first and second degree offenders who had younger victims over those years are still only monitored 2 times a year and can still ask to be relieved of duty to register after 25 years, where anyone convicted of the third lower level degree offense would still have to register 4 times a year for life with no chance for judicial review, which was recently ruled unconstitutional for low level offenses to be required to register for life in South Carolina's Powell versus Keel 2021. The federal SORNA laws, they define the severe tier offenses as either violent without consent or having a victim that's under 15 for sexual penetration, which this third degree offense has neither of those. And there is no and again, had they just chosen younger victims, they would have been charged with a first degree offense instead of the third, allowing them to get off. Nor does any other state in the U.S. place these low-level third-degree offenders in the severe tier. 2 of your own neighboring states don't consider this a crime, Nebraska and Montana. South Dakota only made it a crime in 2021, and the others monitor it as a low-level G offense where they can get off after 10 years. These low-level offenders deserve the right to appeal their registration status. It's time to fix this injustice that for 18 years has made these low-level offenders register twice as often as worse offenses, which was, again, recently ruled unconstitutional. There's other legal precedent showing that these citizens are entitled to their protected liberty interests despite having seriously messed up. All offenders who opt to appeal their risk level classification must be afforded an opportunity to be heard before the courts, and moreover, such hearings must be meaningful. The fact that certain classes of sex offenders are subject to lifetime registration and community notification further supports we are dealing with a protected liberty interest. Sex offenders must adhere to the requirements for life or else face criminal repercussions, and as a result, their legal statuses are permanently altered. That was ruled in State versus Germain, Rhode Island. How can it be said that
Mr. Hanson, sorry, I got to wrap things up. Can you just bring it to a close for us?
I can, yep. This topic, it shouldn't take very long. As I said before, there's a detailed memo about it, and the LSO office and the Attorney General have already admitted that it's the case, that it is being treated unconstitutionally. And we are again asking today that you just take the time to reclassify this low-level offense from the severe J-tier offenses into the medium so that it can be more in line with Wyoming's intended legislative purpose of the registry being to monitor offenders and not punish, and for the protection of children as well.
All right, any questions, committee? Thank you, Mr. Hanson. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, committee. So I think what we'll do now is we'll just go down the dais. We've got about 30 minutes left, so that would leave, a couple of minutes, about 2 minutes per person. Not a whole lot, but we'll go down the dais, and this is your opportunity. If you have a topic that, I know there's 4 of you on this panel who have topics that weren't covered yet, so obviously you'll be able to cover those. And then if you wanted to speak any comments against or for any topic, now would be your opportunity to let us know before everyone leaves to vote. Obviously, you can send any other information you have by email to your colleagues as well, but we'll start over here with Senator Hicks. Nope. Okay, Representative Kelly, I know you have a topic on here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, the only topic I'm going to talk about is updating the controlled substance statute. It's on page 7. And what we're looking at here, the current statute, fentanyl falls under it's a crystalline substance at under 3 grams. Its lethal dosage is 2 milligrams. We know the issues with fentanyl in the country. I think it'd be a good idea to have our legal, medical, pharmaceutical, forensic, and law enforcement experts get together and talk about some statutes that make sense. And considering we have other chemicals like carfentanil, which is 100 times more powerful than fentanyl, we really need to just update the controlled substance statute. And the other topic, which is the obscenity amendments right after that, would it be appropriate at this time to withdraw, considering 3 other representatives are going to be talking on that?
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to withdraw it. I think Co-Chairman Washington and I found that we could lump all those obscenity.
Okay, I'll let someone else talk
together, so-
about that one. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Bratton.
I have particular thank you, Chairman. I have particular interest in some of these transparency proposals, but for right now, I'll cede my time to those who have some individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Kolb, tell us how you really feel about primary seatbelt laws.
I absolutely think they're a total waste of time. And I'll tell you why, not because I think that wouldn't help in some circumstances. We've tried so many times to do this, we've burned so much time, our time is precious. And that's why I think primary seatbelt use is as a, said it wrong, primary offense for not using your seatbelt just doesn't work. No one's gonna, I mean, it just hasn't worked, and it's ended up being I guess, squandering of resources. I think some of the other subjects within this are kind of all encompassing, because it started off with highway safety child restraints and then added in a bunch of things, I guess, for good measure. And I just don't think it's an efficient use of our time. I think we could probably talk about child safety restraints. There's probably some value there, but I just adamantly not in support of the primary offense of not using a seatbelt. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Washit, I know you have a couple topics of your own, and then you mentioned Representative Smith's topic.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. I'll start with Representative Smith. You had a bill this year dealing with hit and runs of pedestrians where the driver leaves the victim laying in the road for dead and drives away, you know, and causes serious injury. And he'd really like us to take a look at that and see if there might be some tweaks to the hit and run statutes that might enhance the penalty for those cases where somebody's up on the hood of your car and they drive off and shake them so they fall off the side of your car. And it does seem like a much more aggravated kind of situation that maybe an aggravated penalty might be appropriate. On my bills, I've asked other committees.
Hold on, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to let it known for the record, when Representative Washit did that to me last summer, it hurt.
I thought you were going to declare conflict.
I honked, for the record, I honked twice.
Representative Washit.
Thank you. I've asked all the committees to take a look at aging in Wyoming. I think our changing demographics are going to impact almost every facet of Wyoming life. They're going to impact our correction system. They're going to impact health. They could impact agriculture as third generation chooses not to take over the family farm and those sorts of things. So I think that this is a huge issue, and it'd be good to hear from agencies what they think, and know for sure that our agencies are anticipating these changing demographics and the impacts they might have on their areas of expertise. I also have a topic of the Wyoming State Hospital and forensic exams. We heard from the sheriff of Uintah County, and we've also heard from the sheriff of my county about the costs of incarcerating individuals while they await evaluation or care at the state hospital, and what that impact is on the taxpayers of those counties. I think it'd be a worthwhile topic for us to take a look at. And then I too wanted to look at fentanyl. Mr. Carini mentioned the cartel involved stuff. We just saw a news story last week about cartel associated individual being arrested on the Wind River Reservation for trafficking in methamphetamine. And I just worry that there's more and more cartel involved crime in our state, and I'd like to get a feel for that. So I think I had one more in here. So, internet crimes. Senator Hicks had the internet threat to minors, and I just think the internet creates a criminal atmosphere that's woefully under-policed in Wyoming. Our chances of being stolen from, our children being victimized, are way higher on the internet than they are in almost any neighborhood in Wyoming. And we have just a very small select group of people who police those environments.
Mr. Chairman, and I would add
Senator
to
Hicks.
that, it's not just children. Somebody that has very aged parents that have been victimized a number of times with internet scams, and they really do target some of our oldest and youngest folks, and it's a real problem out here.
Representative Chestik, you have a topic on this list?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's on page 6. It deals with medical cannabis, and I was asked to be the landing spot on this committee for this topic. Wyoming Normal is the group that's really advocating for this, and they asked me if I would be willing to sponsor it, if they brought it forward, and I am willing to sponsor it and discuss it. And this deals with medical. It doesn't deal with recreational or other types of uses. It's really for medical. And the reason that this topic was interesting to me was because we did deal with this in a kind of a adjacent way in the prior interim. We talked about CBD and Delta 8 variants. We had some legislation last session dealing with those, and we heard a lot of testimony from people who were getting a lot of relief from CBD, but also cannabis, medical marijuana does provide some relief to certain people, and with the prevalence of how it's available so readily in neighboring states, it's legal in neighboring states. Somebody who has a legal right to use medical cannabis in an adjacent state and drives through here, is now subject to criminal prosecution in Wyoming. I just think it's a good topic to discuss, and I think we need to deal with the folks that really do have a verifiable medical need for this treatment option, and that's the topic that I would like to have some discussion on.
Okay, thank you, Representative Chestik. Representative Filer, you have anything? Oh, yeah, we talked about the retail theft, but
Yeah, I figure just wait till we get down the dais, Mr. Chairman.
do you want, it's to you, it's your turn,
Oh, okay.
now or never.
Now we're
You're up.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I do want to talk about that on page, I believe, starts on 6, page 7, the retail theft. I think ever since COVID, a few years back, I think we've seen more and more of a process where people are actually getting used to this, and they've actually started more of organized theft in a lot of different places. This is a really good topic. Also, Mr. Chairman, Representative Kelly's the fentanyl statutes that we want to look at, I'm really in support of that. And then also, Mr. Chairman, one other thing too with our Wyoming Highway Patrol, I believe, starting on page 13 through 15, some of those topics, but I would like to know if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, that if we could add something to that, especially when we're looking at possible organized type crimes and stuff, if we can add to their interim topic as far as maybe being able to help them equip themselves better in order to fight these certain crimes and different things of that nature coming from safety equipment as far as bulletproof glass, types of things that we heard about in committee when they testified when they went to Texas. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see a little move on that too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Filer. Representative Lean, you have a couple.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The obscenity law revisions, this has to do with House Bill 194 that we heard. I think that it's important that we start to review those. There was a lot of testimony given in every direction, and there's a lot of emails that are going to come your way. I think the public deserves an opportunity to have input as we travel around the state. It will be a big topic, but I do think it needs to be undertaken. And it is mentioned on here 3 times, and then Representative Lucas also had it on our revenue earlier in the day. So that'll be 4 people that have suggested it.
Obscenity laws and revenue?
Yeah.
All right.
We chose not to take it up.
Okay.
And then I thank Ms. Rubino for her presentation of the transparency and accountability for licensing boards. And then I also have one submitted for the Hatch Act. And I'll give you just a brief rundown. This one was brought to me In 1939, Washington DC passed the Hatch Act to prevent questionable political activities. The act didn't allow civil service employees to run and hold executive positions in the federal branch of government. It was viewed as a conflict of interest. In 1976, Michigan passed the Act 169, Public Employees Act, and it's to limit political actions by persons whose paychecks are derived from taxpayer monies. The Hatch Act was created to protect federal workplace from partisan political influence and coercion. Local, county, state, and federal governments within Wyoming need protection from taxpayer-funded employees who put their interest of their employees and personal finances above the needs of their constituents. And so I'd be interested in bringing forward the Hatch Act for Wyoming as well.
All right. Thank you, Representative Lean. Representative Brady, did you have anything for us?
This is my time to mention what I'm in favor of.
Sure, or yep, anything you'd like to talk about.
Okay. I as well, anything that is dealing with prior bill, HB 194 for obscenity amendments. And then we had some discussion here about FOIAs or public records requests. I'd like to discuss that more and how we can have more of these records on file and available at a reasonable price. I had another star, hold on. Let's see. Okay, and it might be one of these that you're wrapping in, these 194s, there's multiple requests here that seem to overlap. But exemption, removing the exemption of schools and library obscenity from pornographic status or statutes. I want to visit that, make sure. Oh, that is a 194 as well. There's a lot of these in here. No wonder why my stars are popping out. I think that's, oh, one more. Protecting minors from harmful communications and sexual predators. So some of those might have overlapped as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Webb?
A lot of those that she just mentioned, I would also suggest and support. I would just like to make sure that with the suggestion that was made by the colonel of the department that patrols our highways, as far as the spousal death benefits, kind of had a minute to think about that. Do you still think that needs to go to appropriations, and how does that work? I know I am willing to send an email to the chairman of appropriations, but would like to just make sure we know where we're at with that.
All right, very good. Anything else? Anybody have anything that they wanted to talk about that they get a chance to? Oh, yes, me. I was saving myself to the end. Yes, sorry, Representative Singh? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you wanted to be last there. I do think it's imperative that we take a look at the Controlled Substance Act and make sure that it makes sense for the different formats of these deadly substances like fentanyl and the other, not derivatives, but the different formulas that you can use a similar substance to effectively poison and kill someone in our community. I do think that we need to take the time to make sure that we get that right and make sure that the amounts associated with the crimes of possession are appropriate. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Singh. My topics have already largely been talked about. My topics were actually topics that were derived from bills that made their way over to us on the Senate side and Judiciary, but failed to pass, or they started on the Senate side, but at any rate, they failed to get through committee. So I thought they were worthy of interim topics. And those were the shared parenting, which you've heard enough about, the non-compete clauses for dissolved businesses, which you have heard about. And the only one that wasn't talked about is probate code revisions. So I know that sounds really exciting and riveting for everyone. But, you know, we see almost every session, there's a bill or two or more that are trying to adjust things in the probate code. And so we just keep piecemealing it. And in talking with other attorneys, it might be worth our time to actually take a holistic approach and look at the entire code and decide, where Wyoming should stand on a lot of these issues. And like I said, it's a riveting topic, I know, but it will do a lot of good for our communities I implore you to give us a good topic like probate code. Okay, so with that, committee, just a reminder of how the process is gonna work. Go ahead and, you don't have to do this right away, but before, in the next few days or so, think about your top three, give your top three emailed to Brian Fuller. And then he and the staff will go through and do the ranking system for it and tell us how that plays out. And then Co-Chairman Washington and I are going to meet. We may add topics beyond that three. We may only stick to the three. It kind of depends on what you come up with, because some of these topics are really big. Like if it was obscenity, there's a dozen different topics under obscenity. Whereas some of these topics are, a couple hours in a meeting in a single bill. So if we end up with some of the lighter version topics, Chairman Washington and I obviously will build upon that to make sure we have enough. If we end up with big topics, then we're not gonna bog you down, kind of thing. Senator Hicks?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a process question. And so, because I've got three that are tied for third place, do I submit five then?
If you submit five, your bottom two will be automatically eliminated. Possibly your entire ballot will be invalidated. Representative, or Co-Chairman Washit.
Thank you. Just a couple comments, committee. One of the other things we can do during the interim is tour facilities. And so if there's a part of our, we got a broad purview here in judiciary, but if there's something that you would like to learn more about, a facility you'd like to tour, whether it's the state hospital or the state prison or the boys' school or the girls' school or something like that, mention that as well in your emails so we can take that into consideration. We may choose the site for our first committee meeting based upon a facility or location that you all might want to tour. And also, as you evaluate these, I just remind you, think about some of these topics. Do they need interim study? If it's a straightforward topic that an individual legislator can bring with a bill, we probably don't need to spend the summer talking about it. But that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, if there are competing points of view that need to be heard before legislation could be crafted, that's usually an indicator that an interim topic may be appropriate. Is the topic appropriate for the Judiciary Committee? Does the topic need to be narrowed or broadened? Somebody suggested something about highway patrol equipment. We're free to do whatever we want. So if you have a topic that you're going to recommend, but you think it either needs to be broadened or narrowed, feel free to mention that in your email to Mr. Fuller. And are there topics that we want to learn more about? Some of these topics that come before our committee, the goal may not be to generate legislation, but rather just to learn and gain understanding to make you a better legislator. And that's perfectly appropriate as well. Not everything has to generate legislation, so.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. And for the committee's edification and the public, as a reminder, we have 3 interim meetings scheduled. The first one is May 19th through the 20th. And the where is undecided. So this one ties into what Co-Chairman Washit was talking about. If you have a facility that you think would be worthy of our visit, letting us know that so we can try to schedule that. If you want to, in your email, if you want to send us an email with any locations that you would like to meet at, period, for that first meeting, because it's undecided, we would certainly take your input because we don't have a preference right now. Our second meeting is August 12th through the 13th, and that is in Casper at the Thyra Thompson Building, I'm assuming, in the Roundhouse Room. And then our last meeting will be October 13th and 14th, and that will be here in Cheyenne. So any facilities in Casper or Cheyenne that you want to visit, certainly let us know. But again, if you can help us figure out the May meeting where, that would be appreciative. Representative Chestek, you raised your hand.
Yeah, just another process question. Some of these topics are identical with each other, so that's one vote. But if there are some topics that are related to each other, can I combine them into one topic and say, and make that another vote?
Absolutely, yeah. And we've done a little bit of that on our own, but seeing what you combine might help us to understand what should be combined. Very helpful. Anything else, committee? All right, we are adjourned.